Okay, I've transferred the face on with gray graphite paper and the stylus, and I'm going to use both my small Jillybean Dirty Dancer and my liner brush for the majority of the face. To start with, I'm going to just base in a couple spots. The eyes, they can be any color you want them to be. I'm going to do blue eyes, so I'm going to use ultramarine blue, and I'm going to put a little bit of white in that, so I've got kind of a medium shade of blue to start with. And I think it's easier to go ahead and ignore the pupil and do the entire nice round circle filled in with the color first, which would be your iris. So I'll just use the round brush to fill in that. So when I choose an eye color, I usually fill it in with a medium shade of whatever color eye I'm going to do, and then I'll, darken it with a darker version of that same color and highlight it with white. Try to get them as close to the same size as you can. Okay, clean my brush in water, and I'm not using extender yet, just water so far. I'm going to use white, titanium white, in the corners of the eyes. And if you're more comfortable switching to your liner brush, you sure can. But I'm just using the round brush on my Dirty Dancer because there again it's got a nice little point on it, so I'm usually able to get into the corners pretty easily. The outside corners of the eyes, try to keep them a little more rounded rather than pointy. Gives the eyes a little softer look. Okay, and then for the lips, medium red rose is normally the color I like to use, but it is a color that's being discontinued in traditions. So if you take Naphthol Red Light and put just a little bit of white into it, you're going to get the same color. So I've got the mixture here, medium red, rose, and white. Just a touch of white, doesn't need much. And I'm going to just go ahead and fill the lips in. But don't do the little lines that come out to the sides. Just the actual lip part, not the crease, or the smile line I call it. And on the bottom lip, you'll notice that I have it kind of dip up in the middle here just a little bit. A lot of little kids will have that. Okay. Okay, the pupil is going to be black. Sometimes I can find the handle of a brush that works pretty good. I'm just going to put some black on the end of my script brush, but it needs to be bigger. See, if I just dot it, it's too little. So I kind of just gently go in a circle, and I want the pupil to be kind of touching the top of the eye there. Do the same thing on the other side. Just kind of a gentle rotation. And then I can use my script brush after to kind of clean them up or even them up. Okay, try and get them fairly close to the same size. Okay, then the outside edge of the iris I'm going to outline with the ultramarine blue using my script brush, my 20-aught script. And I'm not going under the eye or under the circle. I just kind of do the sides where they touch the white. Then it with just a touch of water so you can get a skinnier line. Okay, a little more on that side. Okay, then I'm going to outline the perimeter of the eye with burnt umber, and I'm going to thin that with water. And use my script, half and half. So all the way around the eye. Make it kind of rounded in that front corner where the little tear duct is. And rounded in the outer corner, not too pointy out there. Same thing on the other side. Try and keep it as skinny as you can. Okay, now on the one side my line got a little thicker than what I wanted it to be, so I'm actually going to trim it off with just a little bit of flesh tone, which was the color that we base coated to begin with. So I can come in and crop right up next to that line, make it skinnier again. And of course, if I need to make it skinnier inside the eye, I'll use the white. Which I think I will, just inside the corner, just little touch-ups. Oops. Even though I'm going to put a shadow up in there, I just want it to be a little bit more delicate for the beginning. Okay, then we'll let those dry a little bit. For the face itself, I actually like to start with the highlights. For me, it's easier to see the things that pop towards me. And I'm going to be using an extender blending method. Now you have a couple of options. You can either moisten the entire face or just the areas you work in as you go along, or just use it in your brush. Use the extender and blending medium. It all depends on how fast things dry in your area as to which one you're going to use. I'm actually going to go ahead and moisten the entire face with the extender. I'm going to use my angle brush, my 1/2" angle. I'll just use that to moisten with. And I don't want to see puddles all over the face, so try not to get too much. You may need to blot that off on your paper towel before you start moistening things. Now, once I've moistened the face, I don't do it again. So any additional blending I do, it's only going to go into my paint color, because otherwise I'll have too much wetness on there. Now you'll want to tip your painting just a little bit to see, you want to see a shine, but you don't want to see soup. So try to be a little bit delicate with that. If you get too much, what you're going to do is you're going to take a paper towel and you're just going to softly blot and get the extra so that it's not too wet. Okay. All right, then, because I'm using extender on the face, I want that to be my moisture in my brush instead of water. So I'm going to moisten actually both sides of my brush, both the blender side and the round brush side. But wipe them off real good on my paper towel. Okay, and then I'm going to use Highlight Flesh, which is a Americana color. And I'm going to get that in the round side of my brush, and I'm going to use that. I want to get the tip of the nose so I can lay it on solid. I want to get that top round little tip, and then I flip the brush over and I use the blender side to just soften so there's no hard edge. As you pick up color, wipe it off on your paper towel. I'm not trying to drag the color out, I'm just trying to soften it so there's not a hard edge. And I'm not stippling. I also want to do the top ends or top edges of the nostrils. And the top edge can actually stay, can have a hard edge, but I blend the bottom side. Top edge of the other nostril, flip the brush over, and just soften that hard line inside the bottom. Okay, sometimes I may even pull a little bit up the bridge of the nose, but then soften it on both sides. I don't want it too dominant. Okay, then the center of the cheeks, I'm going to put a fairly large circle. And I do want the paint solid in the middle. And then flip the brush over, and I'm only catching that outside edge with the blender brush and softening that hard line. Wipe your brush, blender brush off on the paper towel in between. Just soften around that circle. This is so much easier than trying to use a angle brush and make your hand go in awkward positions all the way around. Because you want to keep that solid color in the middle of the cheek. And you do want to work, you know, while it's still wet so that you don't have any hard edges. Now, if it dries too quickly on you, maybe you didn't get enough extender, put a little bit more into your blender brush. Still blot it off though. And then sometimes you can use that to just do a gentle scrub, not a hard scrub, gentle scrub to loosen up the color on the edge of the paint of the circle. Okay, and then also kind of like the top of the chin. Little curve, and I want to soften. And I'm going to soften the top edge too, just carefully. Sometimes I'll put this under the eyebrows, sometimes I don't. Why don't we go ahead and put a little bit under where the eyebrows are going to be. And then soften the underside. A little under the other eyebrow. And soften. Okay, then I'm going to add just a little bit of extender into the paint color because I want a skinny line, and if you need to switch to your liner brush for this, you can. I'm going to loosen this just a little bit more. I want a skinny line underneath the eye. And soften that. Skinny line under the other eye. And if it's easier to switch to your liner, that would be fine. Now I'll be putting some above the eye, but I'm going to wait till after I do my shading because I usually mess into that area anyway. Okay, so then stop and clean the brush. And now I'm going to just start adding the extender into my paint color. And I'm going to start with my shadows, and I'm going to use the Shading Flesh in Americana. And I'm still using the Traditions extender and blending medium, even though I'm using the Americana colors. It does work nicely with them as well. Okay, now in order to get a little bit softer shadow color to begin with, I'm going to mix half flesh tone and half Shading Flesh because she's got a little bit softer look, and I don't want to get too harsh too quick. And Flesh Tone was our base coat color. Okay, and I've added just a little touch of extender in there so that it'll be loose for me. Now the neck actually is a good place to test out the color to see if it's okay, because that just gets filled in with this color, first color. And that should be about right. I'd rather go, yeah, maybe just a touch more Shading Flesh into there. I'd rather go a little too soft than get too dark too quick. Okay, so the areas that I want to shade are on the sides of the face, and what I can do is I can lay down a line with the round brush, taper it as I get towards the neck, flip my brush over, and just soften that hard edge away. I'm not scrubbing. I've got a very delicate touch. Just soften away any hard edge. Same thing on the other side. Lay down a line of color, taper it at the neck, flip the brush over, and soften that hard edge. Make sure that you keep cleaning your blender brush on your paper towel every so often so that you have a clean brush to blend with. Now, the reason I had these brushes made is I was always, picking up one brush and blending with another, and I'd be putting one in my mouth, and this is just so much easier being able to flip it over to do your blending. Just curve that up in the top a little bit more than what I had it. Wiping my brush off in between. Okay, then I do want above the eyes, same color, my shadow mix, and I can go right against the eye and then soften that line. And I'm coming down in front of the tear duct, rounding this in towards the nose a little bit more, because that way I get that depth between the nose and the eye, that socket. Same on the other side. Above the eye, and then come a little bit further in, soften that line, no hard lines. Okay, I want a little bit on each side of the nostrils, the outside edges. And then soften. Also on the other side. And I'll come back and deepen some areas after too. Okay, now between the nose and the lips there's a little divot, and that is just a little fat line of this color, and you don't even have to blend this. Although I went into the lip, so I'm just going to wipe that out of the lip a little bit. There. And then also under the lip, between the chin and the lip, and then taper it up underneath the lip and soften. Okay, the bottom tip of the nose, right in the center, and soften that as well. Okay, then I do want to deepen some of the areas, but I'm going to go ahead and get my cheek color in next. So I'm going to clean my brush. And put extender back in it. And the medium red rose mixture. Just kind of thin that down a little bit with the extender. And I'm going to put that on the outside edge. And it's going to go a little lower than normal because on children, their little rosy cheeks can be a lot lower than the adults. And then soften that. And you can decide how rosy you want her cheeks to be. Same on the other side. I lay the color on with my round brush, flip the brush over, and soften with the blender. little bit more yet. Soft, soft touch. Now you could use a mop brush too if you needed to. Okay. And then a little bit also on the bottom tip of her nose. Just get a little bit of color under there. And the bottom of her chin. And soften. Okay, I want it darker under her chin, so now I'm going to switch to just the Shading Flesh Full Strength. And we'll see if that's dark enough. If it's not, I may need to put a little touch of burnt sienna in there too. And I think I will. Just a touch of burnt sienna into the Shading Flesh. Remember, just add a little touch of extender to loosen it so you can blend it. That's better. Okay, and then soften. I just kind of outlined under the chin and then soften it down. Okay, I want to darken on each side of the nostril, so this time it's more like just an outline. I don't want it to come in very far. And soften that. And a little above the eyes, but I'm not going to go in towards the nose this time. Just follow the top edge of the eye itself. And this was the Shading Flesh with a little touch of burnt sienna in it. Okay. The lips and the nose I can outline either with burnt umber or burnt sienna. Either one will work. And I'll just use water to make a skinny line. I want to outline the underside of the nose. And be careful, try not to get your nostrils too large where the openings are. Sometimes people put a great big hook. I would rather keep it understated. And the line that goes through the center of the mouth. And you'll notice that on your pattern, the top lip has kind of like a little bump right in the middle. Okay, give her just a little hint of a sweet smile. Okay, and we're going to put some highlight in the lips, so little extender into some of the Actually, let's do the highlight flesh first. And I'm basically more worried about getting it just on the bottom lip because I want that to come out a little bit more. So kind of on each side, just kind of tap that in, and it doesn't have to be real smooth. I will soften it just a little bit with the blender brush. And then come back with, there again, extender and titanium white this time. And in the middle of that first little highlights, just tap in some brighter white ones. And soften. Okay. On the top lip, if I put a highlight on there, I don't want it to be as bright as the bottom, so I'm going to take just a little highlight flesh, and I'm not going to do any white, and I'll kind of just in that bottom half, right above the smile line, and soften it. If you feel you need to outline the top lip, use the medium red rose mixture to clean that up. Especially if you have any graphite lines showing. Cover up my graphite lines. Okay, then up in the eyes, I want to get a little wash of burnt umber in the top parts of the eyes. You can use either water or you can use extender, but make it very transparent. Just use your double-ended brush and right in the whites of the eyes. It's like I make a really transparent wash line and just kind of catch the bottom edge so you don't have a harsh stopping point there. But this will be the shadow that your eyelashes are casting over the eye. Blender brush to soften the bottom edge. Okay, then in the eye itself, in the iris, I want the ultramarine blue to be my wash in the top half of the eye. And it's okay if you even just go right through the pupil because it's transparent and it's not going to affect the pupil. That helps to soften it, and it'll set that eye down in under the eyelid better. So ultramarine blue, and I am using extender to make the wash for the blue just to be on the safe side. Soften any hard edge. Okay, then under the pupil, I'm going to do a wash of titanium white that I'll also thin with extender so that it's transparent. And right under, I'm in the blue, but I'm under the iris, or the pupil. I'm in the iris. And then soften your starting and stopping point. Same on the other side. Soften your starting and stopping point with the blender. Okay, in the top of the eye, there is a little white dot for a highlight, and I have it in the upper left corner of the pupils. And you could use your stylus if you want. Use the titanium white, and then transparent kind of a stroke coming from there in going across through the top of the eye. Now we'll see if I'm rushing it, and you know, you may want to wait until the rest of it's dry, but I did it okay, because you don't want to mess with your other areas if they're still wet. There. Okay, it kind of gives her a little bit more of a glassy look. Okay, eyebrows, I'll get those started. One of the colors that I'm going to use in her hair is also what I'll start with for the eyebrow. I want to try to keep them a little bit consistent. Teeny, I'd rather have the eyebrows understated and not too heavy. So I'm going to use Yellow Deep. Traditions Yellow Deep, and thin it with water, and use your liner or script brush, 20-aught script, and I'm just going to make little teeny strokes to fill in. Just keep them very delicate, little teeny strokes to fill in across. And I'll come back with a little darker color too. So Yellow Deep to start with. And then I'll come back with some little thin lines of burnt umber. I could use burnt sienna also, but thin down that burnt umber with water. And just keep them very delicate and more on the bottom edge. Don't want to overdo. And not too thick. Okay, now I feel like I want a little bit more distinction in the line going through the center of her lips. That dried a little softer, so I'm going to use burnt umber and go right through to find the center of the mouth. Her eyelashes are also burnt umber. Thin with water. And eyelashes are longer to the outside, and they get shorter as you come in towards the nose. So I'm actually attaching them right to, oh, I'm going to stop right there because there's a thin line of the light that I wanted to put on there and I forgot to do that. So let me go back a step. In order for the lashes to show up a little better, I want to create a little bit more to the top of that eyelid, and I use highlight flesh and just make a skinny line. I'm just going to sneak that between those two lashes I got. And a skinny line above the other eye, highlight flesh. Then I can go back and get my eyelashes. Okay, so back to the burnt umber, thinned with water. So eyelashes are longer to the outside, shorter as you come in towards the nose. And you can either pull from the eye out or from the outside in towards the eye, just whichever makes more sense. It usually just depends on the direction I'm holding my painting. And it's always going to feel more awkward doing one side over the other, so sometimes turning it upside down to do the opposite side helps. I usually try not to use black for lashes on little girls. It kind of makes it a little too harsh. Okay, and then the bottom lashes, I actually leave just a little bit of skin showing, and I really want to keep this understated, so just teeny little marks. And they kind of curve to the outside corners.